come at you every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central to discuss maintaining forward progress in your flooring career. With me, as usual, is Mr. Daniel and Jose Gonzalez, although Jose is vacant at the moment. And we have a special guest with us today, Emma. And Emma, I will not butcher your last name, so I'll let you say that here during the introduction. But so thank you for joining us. We are really proud of what we've been able to put together here at the Huddle. As many of you know, last week we talked about the show that we just got back from, and we had a lot of support from there, and it was really awesome to find out how many people actually watched the show. So I want to thank our audience and everybody who joins and finds the information valuable. If you do find this information valuable, we would appreciate a subscribe to our YouTube channel, or a like, maybe a comment on one of the social channels that you're watching us on. And without further ado, today is about design and colors in commercial flooring. So many of us help our clients select materials, and from a flooring contractor standpoint, I typically want to make sure that the performance and the right product is in the right area. But I am not a design expert and colors, and I'm really excited to kind of hear your take on that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Emma. Emma, could you tell us a little bit about you and your company and what you guys are up to?
Yeah. Thanks again so much for having me on today, Paul. It's been it was an honor to be asked. But so my name is Emma Schlittenhart, first of all, and I am an interior designer. I also have my master's degree in architecture, so that is one thing that sort of separates me apart from a couple of the other designers, at least here in town. And I own and operate an interior design studio called Hart Studio. HARDT. It's the last 5 letters of my last name. The whole thing was obviously just a little too much, so we just stuck to the last part of my last name. And so we started in 2020 amidst the COVID pandemic. And I started as just myself, and I have grown it to a team of 4 now. So it's myself and 3 others. We offer everything from floor plan drawings. We do a lot of 3D renderings. We do finish selections. We do furniture selection. We do decorating and organization services as well. And we work primarily on residential or commercial remodels. I'd say it's about a 70-30 split, with residential being the majority of what we do. And then I'm also in the process right now of opening up a showroom, and we're going to be selling hard surfaces, so flooring, backsplash, cabinets, counters, things like that. It's going in a well-known area of our city here in Wichita, Kansas, and it's going to be called Bacote Showroom. And it'll be a place where my team can go select our materials, of course, for clients, but then we will have a retail component as well. So we'll be open to the public, serving interior designers, builders, contractors, and then just the general public as well.
That's great. That's awesome. What I got a couple questions from your intro. You have a master's in architecture. Mm-hmm. What made you decide to do that? That's pretty rare with designers.
Yeah. So math has always been my favorite subject in school. And it was kind of a surprise to even me that I decided to go down a more creative path. But I kind of found that passion in college, and then got my bachelor's in interior design, and then decided that I wanted to go do my master's. And there were actually a couple of different components that played into that. The first one being that I'm really competitive, and nobody in my family has a master's degree. And my mindset is like, why not me, right? And so it was only 2 more years on top of my other schooling, and I did it all online. And so it was really like a why not. And then the second reason is I worked for an architect for a while I was doing my undergrad, and he was really a big proponent of getting a degree in architecture of some sort. he'd been through the 2007 housing market crash. He worked for a firm at the time, and he's like, the first people that got fired were all the interior designers. So it kind of scared me, honestly, a little bit, but interior design is definitely a luxury service. And when the economy goes, that's just one of the first things that go. And so I wanted to obviously have a little bit of job security. And then I knew that it would also separate myself from the crowd, and I would have the knowledge to do more than just pick out the pretty stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. What's last question here? What got you to want? How did you arrive at the decision to start your design studio and your showroom, I should say, and open it up to the public and kind of try to service not only general public but also contractors and other designers?
So with the design studio, being at home during 2020 and having a lot of spare time on my hands is kind of what prompted that decision. My husband is an entrepreneur, and I was always jealous of his schedule, I guess. He was working from home even before COVID. And I was like, I want to do that too, So when I got sent home during COVID, I was getting all my work done in 2 hours. Then we would go golfing for a couple of hours, and then I didn't know what to even do with the rest of my day, So I started doing some freelance stuff, if you will, for friends and family members and just helping them out. And then my entrepreneurial husband was like, we got to make this into a business. We got to make this something. And I was really excited about it too. I mean, he definitely didn't force me or anything. He's been a great support and a great help in all of that. And so we made it legit at that point. And then the reason for starting the showroom, of course, officing at home was not everything it was cracked up to be. I find it easy, but I find it hard to end work at the end of the day. And so I wanted a place where my team could meet. Now that I have a team, it would be helpful to have an office ourselves. It would be helpful to have a conference room where we can take our clients and we can present to them their floor plans, their renderings, and pull samples. And then obviously there's a monetary component of it as well. Right now we're shopping everywhere else, and that's all dollars that we're giving to somebody else. And so being able to just have another income stream looked like a good idea for me, and hopefully it is. And then, my goal with targeting other designers and contractors is just that I feel that I've been doing this long enough that I know what other designers want and need here in this market. One big example of that is, how divided East and West Wichita are, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's no showrooms on the east side of town, really. I mean, we've got a couple, but really most of them are larger box chain stores. And if you want something besides that, there's not really a good option. So that was one of the reasons that I put it where it was. And then also I think that there's a need for that from a designer perspective, a nicer, smaller showroom that's more boutique style, less is more. We won't have a ton of stuff. We'll have a very limited selection. And we want to do a really great designer program to incentivize them to bring their clients in. And then, just being in the location where we're at is what made us want to be open to the public, because it's a big, it's a strip center basically. So there's people walking back and forth all the time, lots of restaurants in there and other stuff. So.
Well, awesome. Congrats on all that, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
So guys, when you are helping a client select flooring, how often are you working with a designer?
Very minimal, actually. Yeah, let me move this. Sorry, I was coughing earlier, so that's why I disappeared, came back. So as far as working with a designer, very minimal. And the reason is that most of the clients already have what they want picked out, or they have something in mind. And like she said earlier, it's a luxury, right? And a lot of people are always trying to pinch those pennies, so to speak. But when you have clients that don't have the time, they just want someone to make a decision because they can't make it in the house. That's when we run into it quite a bit. And the designers we work with work out of other showrooms, or they have their own. So it's really pretty easy. The only questions we get is, will this perform?
Yeah.
Make this happen? And not a lot of them have the degree in architecture like she does. So I'm sure that she kind of already has a little bit of an upper hand on that. Performance is key.
I don't know. My buddy Zach is an architect, and he told me that they don't know nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I
No
kind of agree with
comment.
that.
You know, fortunately for us, the designers that we do work with, we've had a relationship for a very long time, and they don't really have the best experiences with a lot of the trades, a lot of the flooring installers. That's the only one I can really relate to, unless they vent. But and that led me to a question, actually, and I wanted to ask her is, like, how do you select your contractors? How do you build your team? What are you looking for? And the reason I asked that is because we've been fortunate to keep getting repeat business. Like, they don't call anybody. They have an install that has a level of difficulty. They already know who they're going to call. And I don't, those are some of the projects that I look forward to doing, because it's not a race to the bottom. It's what is this going to cost?
Yeah. To answer your question on how do I pick my contractors, that's probably been the hardest part of my job, actually, is finding the right contractor and getting them to stick around, right? Either being willing to work with me or being willing to stick to this area, Wichita. But I went through probably one contractor every 3 months when I first got started. And I obviously hold my people to very high standards, not only on the work that they do, but on their timelines and on their fairness with the clients, as far as, if things come up for additional, they want, a change order, more money, things like that. So I was pretty much going through a contractor every 3 months when I first started. And then I was fortunate enough about 1.5 years ago to find a general contractor who reached out to me. And so it was a really good setup because I could test him out on his own projects, right? So he reached out to me. He said, I need your help with design on these bathrooms. And I was able to help him out and kind of watch him from afar as I'm doing that, and seeing how he treats his clients and how he works, what his level of expertise is with everything. And I've worked with him ever since. And to me, like, why go find anybody else? He's great. So.
Yeah, we've worked with multiple designers, and designers reach out to us to, help them not only select product once they have a good color scheme going, just to make sure that the right products are in the right area from a performance standpoint, but also to actually perform the work and, bid the job. And a lot of times when you're working with designers, we try to encompass, really open up the lines of communication to understand their vision and provide expertise where we have it. So let's move on to the meat and potatoes, which is kind of, we're curious on design trends and, where is design going? How can you help us to understand when we're showing clients, like, where is it all going? It seems, we were so gray, black and white for
That's what I was going to say.
decade or more.
What happened to gray?
What's that?
That's what I was going to say. What happened to gray?
Yeah. So, I still see it, but it seems to be softening or maybe changing to more of a taupey color. I don't know. I just curious of not only where are the trends, but from your opinion, where do the trends start? Who starts these things? Who says, gray's over, let's start something else?
That's a great question. Well, so first of all, the way that I kind of collect my knowledge on what's trendy and what's not is I try to do a decent amount of traveling and seeing what's going on in other places. I just recently judged the Parade of Homes in Tulsa, which is not that far away, but they actually have a lot of people coming in from California, similar to Texas. And so a lot of the trends there kind of mimic what was happening on the coasts. And you'll always hear that trends start on the coast, whether that's interior design or clothing trends or even like graphic design. It always starts at the coast is what people say, and then it comes to us slowly. But Tulsa was a really good representation of what's happening on the coast because they have a lot of Californians there now. And so anyway, while we were there judging the Parade of Homes, I was actually very pleasantly surprised to see not a lot of gray. Like you said, Paul, it's there still. It is more muted. It is more beige influence. So it's more of a grayish, if you will. But there was no gray flooring. There were not really any gray walls. There was a little bit of gray cabinetry, a little bit of maybe a lighter gray wall, but nothing dark at all. I mean, nothing like your shirt or darker gray. There was a lot of color being used in the actual hard finishes of the homes. There was a lot in the cabinetry and on ceilings, in powder bathrooms, tile in bathrooms, things like that, which was really exciting to see. Mostly the colors were like sage greens, and there were a couple of almost mauve colors that I saw.
Oh
Mauve tones.
no,
Yeah.
Mauve's coming back.
I think it's coming back.
I don't know what color mauve is.
Yeah, you need to Google it. It's something. So, and then I just actually yesterday did the Parade of Homes in Wichita. So, I'm comparing these two and I'm thinking to myself, is it going to be similar? Are we still way off? And actually we were pretty spot on with what they're doing there. So, in my opinion, that's kind of what the trends are now. I've seen it enough to know that that's kind of where we're leaning. And then, my clients, when I work with them, they're always giving me a big Pinterest board full of all the stuff that they like, right? And I'm seeing a lot of the same colors there. I'm seeing a lot of sage green.
So that's where it starts, is Pinterest.
I think it starts on Pinterest, and who's making those pins? I don't know. It could be Europeans. It could be, I don't know. It could be aliens for all I know, but, and then I think that, magazines and TV shows like HGTV and even, Instagram celebrities or influencers on Instagram, whatever they're sharing, whatever they're doing, that really helps set the trends a lot too.
It almost sounds like they're just kind of collecting an algorithm, and that's what's being pushed to the forefront.
Basically,
Right.
social media is controlling everything.
The world.
What else is new?
Like everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
When you said colors, is it, you mentioned mauve and sage green, one of the things that was pretty predominant with the gray was really almost an institutional level feel. I mean, it got really cold for a while in design. Are they trying to just bring more color in general, do you think? Or is it specific colors that are starting to trend? Do you see what I'm saying? Is it just any color's okay? We need more color into our design in general.
Yeah.
And
I would definitely say it's specific colors that are starting to trend. Like I'm not seeing yellow at all. And I remember growing up, my parents had their whole first level of their house painted a light yellow. So like that hasn't come back yet.
Let's hope that doesn't.
I hope not either.
We're seeing
terrible.
hospitals switch to white from yellow right now.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm a big fan of white. Like I almost tell all my clients to paint their walls white, and then it gives you a blank slate to start with, and then we can go from there. But anyway, I do think it's specific colors, and I think those colors are based almost on a rotating wheel of what was trendy. People my age have PTSD of yellow. So that's not going to be trendy for a while yet. Now, once my generation starts to hit like probably their 60s and their 70s and nobody listens to us anymore because we're old, then that color might start to come back because we've all kind of forgotten about how terrible it was. That kind of seems to be the trend of what colors come in and out, in my opinion.
Oh,
So
that's
what
interesting.
what you just said about age. So can you break age groups into specific demographics for color trends? Does that have a lot to do with it?
I
And
think it,
Well, I want to, burgundy and teal were the colors when I was growing up, like in the 80s
oh
and
man,
early 90s.
I lived in the hood, bro.
And
It was burgundy, black, and gold.
well, still there. The point here is it has neither one of them colors have come back. And so what you're saying is a pretty interesting insight. Maybe when I'm 70,
yeah,
then
they'll be back.
and if so, and I'm still shooting this podcast, I'm going to come on and say Emma was right.
I was right. You have to bring me back for a guest, a reappearance. I love it.
Interesting. So, when you are selecting colors, do you like the permanent colors? So the wall colors and those kind of things. You just said you kind of like more of a blank slate, whether it's white or maybe um, um, a light color in some sort.
Mhm.
Then you start building around that with, your flooring and your tile and your things like that. What do you do there? What is the what should we consider when we're working with someone and they have a beautiful building, residential or commercial, their home or their office space. We have white walls or light colored walls. What do you want to see in the flooring? Is it like, do you want to contrast greatly, or is it more of a product of like what kind of facility it is as well?
Yeah, I think that all of that goes into it. I think that even the, in a house, at least the owner's opinion goes into it a little bit too. There's not always necessarily a right or wrong answer because, I mean, in my opinion, interior design is art and art is always subjective. What I like, you're not going to like, and what you like, Daniel's not going to like. But there's definitely some color theories that will tell you if something does not go together. And part of the reason I like to start with white walls is because, well, white obviously is bright. It feels clean. It feels open. It reflects light. So it makes your space feel bigger. And then I like to start there because we can kind of go any direction with our flooring, right? We could go black, brown. We could even go white or gray on the floors, or we could do a color. I mean, honestly, because it's open at that point to pretty much anything you want. In my opinion, the thing that looks the best is having a higher contrast flooring with the white walls. If you do go white or light on the walls, so anything like medium brown tones down to black is kind of the best fit, in my opinion, for that.
Gotcha. Well, I love the when you have really light walls and really dark floors. It doesn't always work. We do a lot of dentist offices, and putting LVT in their operatory areas. We don't put dark because of all the spit and the toothpaste and the stuff just shows up everywhere all of a sudden. So that's obviously that's one of the things that a lot of designers don't think of. And maybe some do, but not all of them. And those are just things that we experience later on when someone's like, is there a better way to clean this floor? I'm constantly cleaning all the white toothpaste off or whatever. And you're like, well, maybe we shouldn't put dark walnut or black walnut in
Absolutely.
these spaces.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because everyone thinks that white shows everything, right? But it's absolutely the other way around with floors, at least. Dark floors really do show everything. And I also think, like, to your point, that's why it is helpful to have designers or architects or even flooring people who specialize in a certain field. Because if you're doing, churches or dentist office or vet clinics or daycares all day, you're going to have a lot more knowledge on exactly what products work best functionally and aesthetically for those types of spaces.
When you work with your contractor or a flooring company or something, let's use flooring. Does it bother you at all when they bring product to you and say, this is what you should use, and then there's a color selection within that product line? Or would you rather, we have found, I probably need to qualify this question. we have found that sometimes designers can be really stuck on their product, even if it may not be the right application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I always leave it. I mean, if you as a flooring expert are willing to give me insight on what brand of flooring I should use, I am personally more than happy to hear you out on that, because I cannot mentally keep track of the right brand of everything for every product that I'm selecting, because I'm doing floors, trim, doors, windows, paint, it goes on, and then it goes into furniture too, right? And there's a whole list of 250 other brands of furniture that I'm supposed to keep track of as well. And so if you as the flooring expert are willing to advise me on that, I am more than happy to hear that out.
That might be the architect in you.
Yeah, maybe the reasonable part. Yeah, I think that maybe a lot of the times designers, we are used to having contractors or whoever it might be try to tell us the right way to do our job. And so that might be kind of where that comes from, that you're experiencing that with designers sometimes. But no, I'm not that way, at least. I like to think so.
Yeah. Well, we've had both ways where the designer really appreciated it. I was just curious if how you felt about that. And then, obviously we used to have a design center and have tons of designers come in and use it. It was similar concept from the size standpoint that you have, which is like, it wasn't, some massive 30,000 foot showroom of tile and but we were really selective of what goes in there. But working with designers inside the design center, as we called it, that always tended to foster a good team atmosphere. It's when they have selected something on a set of drawings and we're like, that is not going to work in a shower room. It's LVT and it's glued down. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, just use it, Anyway, on to the next question before I stick my foot in my mouth. The next question, and this kind of tends to go a little bit more on the business side. How do you bridge the gap between desire and budget when you're dealing with the client and they got to, that old saying, what is a champagne taste with a beer budget?
Your budget. Yeah. I hear that all the time. I've never had anybody tell me they don't have a budget. I've had people who won't give me a number, and then it's not until I've picked stuff out that they say that that's not in their budget. And then, that's obviously always frustrating because you're like, well, what is your budget? That would have been good to know. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge. My biggest thing is I won't even look at stuff if it's not in their budget. So as soon as they give me a number, if I know that, we have $5 a square foot to spend on flooring, I will, because I usually start my search online, at least. That's how I do it now. When I have a showroom, that'll probably change, but I will filter it by my price, and I don't even look at anything that's not in my price point. And so that kind of helps me to stay within their budget. As far as quality goes, if there is an item that I think is going to be better for them and it's not in their budget, I'll usually bring that to the clients and kind of let it be their call. Hey, this is $1 a square foot more. It's going to be a $2,000, addition, but I really think it's worth it because it's going to last you another 15 years. It's not going to scratch as much and it's going to be better for your pets, something like that. So
a lot of times when designers, one of the challenges is when homeowners find something on Pinterest and say, this is what and they fall in love with it. I mean, I've literally had it happen where they absolutely fall in love with it. And they're like, well, where else can we cut to get this in the budget?
Yeah. No, so I've got some clients that are kind of doing that right now. I mean, they bought a 100-year-old house right on the river, and they want to add on a full glass wall on the back of the house so that they can see their view. And that's like the mantra of their project. They need to do that. Now they also need to gut and remodel the rest of the house because it's 100 years old. But that's like the glass is going to happen one way or another, even if the rest of the house has to have 50-cent carpet throughout, but that's kind of what the most important part of the project is. And so I think that being able to figure that out too with your clients is really key. Being able to find out where their priorities lie. And I always say that usually the spaces that you're going to spend the most time in, your kitchen, your living room, maybe the primary bedroom, those are probably going to be your main spaces. And then let's start there, and then we can cut in other spots if we need to.
Awesome. Guys, what's your thoughts on budget? What have you had to kind of mental gymnastics have you guys had to do to
I think it's
bridge
less
the gap?
I think it's less the material for us than it is the overall package.
Mhm.
Because people have I don't know where they get the dollar amount in their mind, but it's like, oh, I thought this was just going to be like $5 a square foot. It's like material is $5 a square foot these days.
Yeah.
And you want us to remove and install everything?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Do you guys ever run across as you're working through a project and interior designer or not, do you ever run across where your client gets really honed in on a certain product and you have to figure out other products for other areas to reduce costs to make that product fit in?
we do our very best to conform to their changes that they're trying to have, right? But if I'll be honest, if we're not working through a designer and when I'm talking to a client, I'm very direct. I try to, it's like, hey, look, I understand you really want to make that change, but I'm letting you know, like, if I know it's going to fail, it's not going to perform, then I'm really have no interest in doing it, to be honest with you. And I mean, that's the short version of it, right? Usually we go down a conversation and I drop it very lightly and I say, well, these are the potential downfalls. As far as working with a designer or through a designer, we do have the luxury of being at the forefront of some of that and giving her or them our worries on some of the products. And then they usually narrow it down, but that's an individual designer. But if we're working with a design firm, that's a lot harder to do, especially that's more in the commercial world than it is the residential world. They don't like to hear that their selections are wrong at all. But
well, maybe that's part of the key is the independent designer. That's a good insight as well. Is when I get outside my comfort zone, I reach out to the designers that I know and try to get somebody on board, because I may be an expert in the flooring product itself, but how it ties in with all the other elements in a building, I'm not a designer. So that's where people like Emma come in to save the day a lot of times. I guess from when we're talking about, color and design, you have an architect background or degree. How much has that influenced the way that you approach these things? Yeah, a master's in So what kind of things in your architectural from that degree, does that influence your design? Because you do floor plans and things like that as well, you said. So obviously that's going to be derived from the architectural side of you. It's really intriguing to me that you have both sides. So I'm curious, when you start selecting your products that you're going to utilize, does that I mean, it seems like it would influence the way that you do your selections, not just for color. You may be an outlier, I guess is what I'm saying, where you consider how it's going to be used as opposed to just what looks pretty.
So in architecture school, I think there was one class maybe on finishes. So there's not a whole lot of focus on it, but the one class that there is on finishes is all about functionality. It's not really got anything to do with color. And so it definitely helped me a little bit to kind of just take those other items into consideration. They're really good about teaching you that in interior design school as well, that, you know, we're not just looking at color. We have to make sure that the product is going to hold up and that it's going to function the way that the client needs it to. I would say the biggest thing that the architecture degree did for me is it opened up my knowledge into commercial design a lot more. Really, when you do interior design school, the focus is on homes, and then switching over to architecture school, it's on commercial design, right? And so I don't know if it changed a whole lot about how I think about the functionality of products, but it definitely added a lot to my knowledge for codes and ADA and all of that. And that all goes into selecting product as well. I mean, not a lot of people know that there's a coefficient of friction that you need to maintain on your tile if it's going into an ADA bathroom, or just a commercial bathroom in general. So it definitely did add to my knowledge base, and I'm very helpful for that because it makes me sound really smart if I'm able to spitball stuff out. I remember one time I was working with a guy, and we were doing a therapy clinic, and you know, he texted me 2 pictures of doorknobs, and he's like, which doorknob should I pick? And one of them was one of the traditional round where you twist it, and one of them was more of the lever kind of doorknob. And I just respond, and you know, he wanted my opinion on looks, and I responded and I said, you have to do the lever knob because you have to be to code, and part of ADA code is that somebody without a hand has to be able to open that door. So you have to be able to open it with your elbow if you don't have hands. And he was just like, whoa, I would have never thought about that. I'm like, yeah, well,
I never thought about that. And we work in hospitals all the time.
yep. So
well, everybody just learned something.
Now you'll start paying attention. I bet you'll see it a lot more. So there you go.
So you're saying that your background with your degree helps a little bit with the engineering process as well, so that you kind of have an idea of this might be feasible or this is way out of line, or with the budget you submitted to me, I can tell you that we're going to open up this can of worms.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
helps.
Yep, it does.
Well, and it helps that you are creative, but it's almost like you're creative second.
Yeah. Like
you're analytical and math driven first. And so that probably helps a lot, because I love all my designers. So this isn't, you know, but even though they're taught, just like you said, in design school, that functionality is important, I have found that, you know, a fair number can get really hung up on a certain color. Like that color, if I cannot get it switched over to a different brand and it keep all the same design, look, color, like they don't want to look at it, and they get really stuck on that piece of it. I'm working on a project right now where, you know, it's over budget, and so we're getting creative with some of the product selections and trying to cross over an LVT that is pretty unique to that brand and style. And so I can't find something that's like almost the exact same. And it is a struggle. We are struggling to get that. Someone has to move. Like the budget's not going to move. It's been cleared. They're not going to spend any more money. Right. And I've got to switch this out to be able to have any hope of hitting the budget. So in that realm, it's like, please, like, come my direction a little bit.
You got to give a little bit.
Yeah. Just so that's why that question came up earlier. Actually, the gap between the budget and the you know, the design and how you like work through that, because we definitely have those scenarios come up fairly often, several times a year at least, where, you know, we're stuck almost between a rock and a hard place. So
yeah, we were on a project a few years ago where this she was actually maybe she wasn't a designer, I forget what she did, but
she was selecting the colors, it sounds like.
She really wanted a bamboo floor. And it wasn't in the budget, so they went with an engineered, like, pine looking floor. So it was real knotty and had a lot of dark planks.
Oh, no,
And
she
then-
was a designer. That's right. I know which one
And
you're
then
talking about.
after we got everything done, it was always, don't like this over here, don't like this board, don't like this board. And it's like,
She was a designer. Actually, she's a designer for a very large firm. She does a lot of spec designs for
Okay.
companies, and she selected a material that the variation in the boards was all over the place. Right, it was different sizes. Like it was a wood floor, and instead of saying what she didn't like at the beginning, she waited till everything was installed.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, this
Well-
kind of leads me to kind of my final question for you, Emma, which is, it was touched on a little bit earlier, but what are the keys to success in your mind when dealing in these scenarios where you're dealing with other people, you're dealing with a team? You talked about finding a good contractor, but a lot of times you're kind of in a luxury position in the low bid world of commercial building where you never know who the GC is going to be until the bid is over and you get told that, oh, guess what? XYZ GC's the builder, and they have their team that they've assembled of low bidders. And so, but working in those scenarios, when you're working with teams and just what the guys just brought up, what Jose was just talking about, where he's trying to, be proactive, or he wishes that would have been proactive. We all have our frustrations with, working within a team, but what are some of the keys to success that you've found in your relationship with, say, this current builder you're working with? What makes it work so well? Not just its quality. There's got to be some other things.
Yeah. I mean, I know that this one's a cliche, but honestly, communication is 95% of this job. And I'm sure you guys know that. But even if something does go wrong, because no, not even if, when something goes wrong, because it always does.
There you go.
If you can communicate it upfront and effectively and be professional about it and catch it in time, and you can communicate that to your client, you'll actually find that most of the time they're not that upset about it. I mean, people aren't usually upset about something going wrong. They're upset that they were not told or that they were not asked. So for example, I was on a project and the contractor said they were going to move a wall. Nobody told me, nobody told the client, they just moved it. And, their excuse was, oh, well, we needed to move it because something about the plumbing line. And I said, okay, well, that you should have at least run it by the client. Like, even if you don't want to run it by me, of course, I would have liked to have had it run by me, but you need to at least tell the homeowner. Again, they wouldn't have been upset about it because they had to do it. Just being able to communicate that. And then, I think communication of timeline and budget is also huge. Putting forward the right expectations, making sure your clients know what to expect. Again, they're not going to be upset if you tell them it's going to take me 6 months, but you got to tell them up front. And that way they have that expectation in mind. So I think that that's really the reason that my contractor who I use works so well with me, is because we're pretty good about communicating with one another. I probably talk to him 15 times a day. We're on the phone probably every 30 minutes, just different project, or I'm asking him a question about something. And again, that's just to eliminate as much error as we can.
Well, that goes even past like communication. I just want to point out that that's embracing almost communicate, like really embracing communication.
Yeah.
What you said earlier about the wall being moved, I would imagine that part of the frustration can come that they had no say in it. Like maybe they would have wanted the wall moved a little further.
Right.
Or you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like if the wall had to move,
Yeah.
me as the homeowner, maybe I want to make sure the wall moves where I want it if it has to.
Yeah,
So giving options and communicating
exactly.
sound like those go hand in hand.
Yeah. And then just the respect of, knowing that it's not your house or it's not your building. It is somebody else's money. It's somebody else's project. It's somebody else's. A lot of the time when we're doing homes, it's somebody's dream that they've been saving for 10, 15 years. And
Please preach.
yeah, I know. And I think it's disrespectful to just decide, oh, I'm going to move a wall because I do this every day and I know it's best. Well, that's fine, but it's not your house, so it's not your choice. And I think that's what it comes down to, is just having respect ultimately for your clients. And then for me, for my general contractor, and my general contractor should do the same for me. So
something like that can change the entire look of a space.
Yeah.
Like if everything was structured around that wall because it was breaking up a sight line, I get it.
Yeah. And that was probably something that should have been caught on the initial walkthrough, or when we were drawing the floor plans, but it wasn't. And it did. It ended up affecting the bathroom. They ended up losing some storage in the bathroom that they would have liked to have had. Obviously, it's not the end of the world. And thankfully, they were very reasonable clients and they were aware that it wasn't the end of the world. But in some cases, that could have been a bigger mess than it was.
Yeah. Well, we've had a lot of a lot of podcasts that end up with that word coming up. It's almost universal. We'll be talking about something or have a whole topic on something, and then it comes back to communication is key. And so I can't, I'd bring that up again for our audience, is that when you're dealing with clients and you're dealing with your general contractor as a installer, or you're dealing with a store, or you're dealing with, architects or designers, communication, both good or bad, timely communication is kind of the key. It's a struggle. I mean, we have to work with our team. Our leadership has to work with our team all the time to really make sure that communication is fostered as a positive. It seems like, if you don't embrace it the way you guys have with, your GC that you're working with, or like, I know that Daniel and Jose are huge on communication. That's what we preach to our project managers and our estimators, is like, if we're not going to bid a job that we've been invited to, we need to let the client know we're not bidding this job, as soon as possible. Or on the project management side, if something goes wrong and material gets delayed, it's better to call and say, hey, this material got delayed as soon as possible. Again, that's giving some options to the designer and to the end user to maybe switch product. If you wait until it's on a boat coming from Korea and you cannot return it, then they're stuck with that, but they're worse off. They're stuck with that timeline that may not work for them. So that communication, I'm glad you brought that up. That is paramount in most things. So
I think too, you present a problem when it comes up, and I kind of decide if that is worth sharing with my client. Usually I'll kind of judge if it's something that they need to be told about. But if I do bring up a problem to them, I'm always pairing it with a solution. So I had chairs that were delayed for a client. They needed them in their house because they were going to have house guests and they were going to have dinners, and they needed their dining chairs. And so I was texting her on a Saturday, and she asked where they were. And I said, they're still not here. I know your house guests arrive on Tuesday. I am so sorry about this. I will go to, I don't remember where I suggested going. I will go get you some chairs, and they will be in your house by Tuesday. They will go with your house. They will go with the design style that we have going. Your client or your guests can use them while they're at your house, and then I will pick them up and I will return them afterwards. And she responded, she was like, wow, that's an amazing answer, or something. And, just being able to present that solution as well is really important.
It's crazy how they go from super angry about something to, wow, thank you.
Yeah, I think I caught her off guard because I think she was just expecting me to say, they're not here, sorry, deal with it. And I know that in flooring, that's a lot different. You can't put a flooring in and then
I was actually
do it all the time.
Bring up. I was going to ask these guys, how often have you put in temporary carpet or something so that the facility could get open, but then have to go back and replace it when the materials finally get in?
It's not even opening. Sometimes it's, hey, we have inspections, we need this down right now. And it's like, well, I got something at the warehouse, let's just throw something in real quick.
I had to do a temporary carpet in a movie theater in Iowa. So driving down there to install a temporary to come back home and wait for a phone call.
Wow.
Yeah, we've installed, in fact, we have several pallets of product and different, of different various products just for that. Like, okay, put this cheap carpet tile in for a couple of weeks until their actual carpet comes in, keep it in the neutral, easy. That's another reason good for us to understand kind of design and colors coming down the pipe is we try to keep a little bit of product that we can throw in, pull up, repalletize for the next time, and use it in temporary manners. We have to do that fairly often, honestly.
That's
And
crazy. I
with
had no
carpet
idea.
tile or with a walk-off carpet, specifically if it's like a walk-off system, like a petamat or something like that. I cannot tell you how many times these are all custom built for the vestibule, that we put in walk-off carpet in a temporary manner until the mat comes in, and it could be 3, 4, or 5 months sometimes before they get to fabricating it, making it, and sending it to you.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we had a car dealership. We just got it in, but it took almost 4 months for that product to get made, and we had to put temporary carpet in. And we had to be cognizant of the facility. So yeah, we have to do that sometimes too.
Wow. Crazy. I had no idea. Okay. Good to know.
All right.
Jorge-
Well, we're
Jorge
nearing
got-
the end here, guys. You got anybody commenting?
Jorge
Any
has something
questions?
here. He says that when he's working for a contractor and he's installing an expensive carpet and the designer wants him to do it, so this is the designer working for the contractor, but he charges a lot more than he already got quoted, then they always have to call him back to do repairs. But I think that's different though, right? Because if who's in charge of the project, the contractor or the designer? Because when we're working with designers, it's always the designer that's in charge of it. And it's always, what do you charge? It's
Yeah.
never the contractor saying that's too much.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and
how do you handle that as a designer?
So with my contractor who I'm working with right now, the understanding is sort of whoever's client it was first, that's who kind of heads up the project, if that makes sense. So if it was my marketing efforts that got me the client, then it's kind of my project and vice versa.
So if you
But
bring him in or he brought you in.
exactly. Yeah. Whoever brought the other one in, that's kind of who is in charge of the project. Now there's phases, and we have our systems worked out where I'm ordering, materials X, Y, and Z, and he's ordering B, C, and D. So obviously if he orders in a product and it comes in wrong, or it's the wrong color, it's the wrong budget, whatever that might be, that's hit on him. But yeah, that's definitely a tricky one.
Yeah.
Because
I should have named this or the title of this podcast, working with a design team and architects, because I
Yeah.
think that's what it's turned
Well,
into. But it's
it
great
has.
information, because so many of us have to have these relationships and work through issues. So having your insights been awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
You guys got any
I have one
final
question.
questions
One
before
question,
we
one
close her
final
down?
question. Easy one. So if I wanted to stock some material on my shelf and be ready for a designer, what is a good trending material to have ready for residential? Let's just say residential, because commercial is its own beast. For
Yeah.
residential, what is a good material to have ready to rock and in
Is this
stock?
like a hard surface or soft surface?
Let's just call it
In
in
general.
let's
So
call it a
I'm
hard surface, like
I'm not doing a lot of carpet right now at all. So if that answers that question a little bit, I mean, other than staircases, I really don't do much carpet at all. I would say vinyl flooring is kind of the new thing. I see a lot of people getting away from, laminate. I'm sorry. They're getting a little bit further away from LVP. And I see a lot more laminate flooring going in now. And so I would say just like a medium colored laminate floor, the wood look laminate floor.
something in the taupey grays or
Brown.
beigey browns.
I'd say brown. Yeah, I would not do it. I would not go gray. I just think I don't think it's going to be around much longer. I think it's already on its way out. And I don't think that we're going to see that resurgence for probably 80 years. So
3 years.
hopefully, I would say.
Well, for
just a
all those
wood
people
look.
out there that have a gray house, the good thing is gray's not burgundy or teal or one of
No,
these.
and what
really-
I always say about color is if you like it, then that is what should be in your house. It doesn't matter if it's a trend. It doesn't matter if I like it. If you like it, then great. It's your house.
Well, that's they're the ones who pay the bill. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good approach.
And I'm just
Right.
gonna give
Alright,
a
well-
quick shout out to Jorge and Kevin for actually commenting today.
Oh,
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Jorge.
thanks, guys.
There's a couple of our really, really high-end installer guys that join our podcast every week. They're great dudes. We got to hang out with them again a couple of weeks ago. So shout out to Jorge and appreciate your comments. Well, I want to thank you, Emma, for coming on today and just kind of rapping with us about design and your approach to business. Again, congratulations on your new digs coming up and all the success that you're having. Keep up the good work, and hopefully we get to work together in the future. And yeah, so with that, guys, you got anything left?
No, that's it. Thank you for letting us know right away that you're smarter than us with your master's degree. We appreciate that. So that way we-
Paul said brag on myself. So
That's right.
That's great. And
That's-
when I go to, when I'm looking at projects, they always ask me, does this look good over here? Does this look good over here? And my answer is always, I'm not a designer, because I don't want to have my hand in that. And then they don't like it. Then it's my fault.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Shoot me a text next time that happens. I'll help them.
Video.
There you go.
There you go.
I'll shoot you a text and then the invoice is in the mail the next day, probably.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's all.
You just yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. It's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more and understanding your approach here, particularly the way you approach business. Honestly, it's impressive, and I'm glad that you're having some success with finding a good team to work with you and growing your team. So,
Thank you.
gentlemen, as always, I appreciate you and the staples of the huddle. And with that, I am going to close it up. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And again, quick reminder, hit that like and subscribe, give us a comment, and let us know what you'd like for us to talk about, guests you'd like for us to bring on. And I'm sure we'll have Emma on again in the future. So with that, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye.
All right. Thank you.